All right, welcome back, guys. We're going to talk about the high stakes, high stakes. It comes with burnout. All right, it's a personal episode for me. Rebuilding from zero is exhausting when you feel like one mistake will ruin everything all over again. First of all, you're carrying the psychological weight of your past while sprinting toward a future that feels out of reach. You're also trying to prove to your boss, your family, your community, and if we're being honest, you're trying to prove something to yourself. And the truth is that pressure will burn you out long before success will ever show up. So today we're breaking down how to set boundaries now so your comeback doesn't collapse under unsustainable expectations tomorrow. Got to remember this, a second chance is powerful. But if you don't pace it right, it can turn into a second collapse. This is the Conviction Fiction. All right, welcome back to the Conviction Fiction. I know you guys have probably been missing me, but that's okay. I'm back. Definitely needed to take a break. We were running 100 miles per hour over here trying to get content out, trying to get a website launched, trying to get merchandise available for those people that have requested it. So let's just start here, man, because this is where most second chances quietly begin to crack. When you come home, you step back into society, you decide to rebuild after whatever incarceration, addiction, bankruptcy, whatever your reset point was, there is this internal switch that flips. And it doesn't say grow steadily. It says go harder than everybody else. You cannot afford a mistake. You have to outwork your past. You got to outwork everybody. You got to outshine the doubters out there. You got to make the haters regret they even hate it. You have to be twice as disciplined, twice as productive, twice as agreeable. And that's the overcorrection trap. It's the psychological urge to perform at 200% to compensate for a record that feels like a permanent stain. And it doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from fear. That fear of being labeled again, that fear of being doubted, fear of someone saying, oh, I knew he really hadn't changed or she really hadn't changed. So what do? We tend to overcompensate. We say yes to everything. Extra shifts? Yeah, I'll be there. Can you work weekends? Yeah, I could be there. Last minute responsibilities wherein, hey, I know you at work right now, but my thermostat went out. Can you come help? Yeah, I can come help. I'm gonna leave my job and come help because it's important that your heat is going. Whether it's volunteering, side hustles, we tend to show up early and we leave late. We don't complain about it. We don't get no rest. We don't even breathe. And on the surface, it looks admirable. You're trying your best. People say, man, he's really grinding, man, or she's really serious about coming back. But internally, you're running off of pure adrenaline because hypervigilance becomes your operating system. It's your new operating system. You're constantly scanning for those threats, always. Did I say the wrong thing? Was my tone off? Did I respond fast enough? Did they look at me differently just now? That's when you're living in that fight or flight while trying to build a future. And the human nervous system, guys, was not designed to stay in survival mode forever. Here's what usually happens. The first 3 months feel powerful. You're focused, you're disciplined, you're motivated. You just own it, right? That's the first 3 months. That's how it normally pans out. Then months 4 through 6, well, that's when the cracks start showing up. You're tired, but you don't admit it. You can't say that you're tired. You're stretched, but you don't say no. You still agree to every whim or every request that you get. You're overwhelmed, but you're still smiling through it all. And then you hit what I call the burnout wall. It's that moment when your body says, hold up, bro, hold up, that's enough. And burnout doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like irritability, like you have short patience, you start missing small details, you shut down emotionally, resentment toward people who never had to go through what you've been through, the way you do things or the way you did things. They ain't have to go through all that. So you start resenting them. And here's the dangerous part. When you burn out, you start performing worse. The very thing you were trying to avoid, like those mistakes, they become more likely because you're exhausted. So let's dismantle something right now. Let's just back up a little bit. Your value is not a debt that must be repaid through exhaustion. I'm going to break that down for you a little further, because when I say your value is not a debt that must be repaid through exhaustion, a lot of people get that mixed up. Like who you are and what you bring to society and to a new community or to the community that you left. You don't owe it to anybody, right? You don't owe it to anybody. You owe it to yourself. That's why you're doing it. But being there for the community, being there to represent or show that you have changed, you can't pay it through exhaustion. You can't be tired. You can't work yourself to death in order to prove that you're not that same person. Think about it. You're not on probation with humanity forever, right? Yes, accountability matters. Consistency matters. All that stuff. Rebuilding takes effort, but you do not have to bleed daily to justify your existence. And that's what I got caught up on. I got caught up in like trying to prove that my growth comes through suffering. Like I just got to do it. I just got to be there. You know, growth is proven through sustainability. There's a difference between discipline and self-punishment, because discipline, that builds structure, right? Self-punishment is that part that whispers to you, you deserve the struggle. This is what you get for doing what you did, right? This is what you get for committing a crime. Yeah, you got your second chance, but it's much tougher for you than anybody else. And that's where that resentment comes in for those who have never been through the struggle. And if we're honest, some of us are still carrying shame that makes us believe we have to earn just the air we breathe. That mindset will destroy your comeback, because you cannot build a stable future on a foundation of internal self-condemnation. The real flex, the real maturity is controlled effort. It's saying, I will show up consistently. I will work hard, I will grow, but I will not destroy myself trying to outrun my past. And this is your comeback season, guys. Your comeback doesn't need speed. It doesn't need speed. It needs endurance. And endurance only comes when you stop trying to prove your worth through outworking everybody or exhaustion. Now that weight of like that trying to be perfect, right? It's something that doesn't get talked about enough or get named enough. It's that pressure of being watched, right? When you've had a public failure, everybody know you went to jail. Your kids know, your mama know, your dad, all your family members know, the people on the news might have known, right? When you've been incarcerated, that's a public failure. When you've had your reputation questioned, you just don't walk back into society. You feel like you re-enter under surveillance. Every room feels evaluated. Every mistake feels amplified. Every pause feels suspicious. And you can internally start to believe that you are being graded constantly. At work, you think, oh man, if I mess up, man, they'll say I was the wrong person they hired if I mess up right now. Just walking around in your neighborhood, man, if something goes wrong, man, something gets stolen, get broke into, or somebody get hurt, they gonna look at me first. In your family, there's that surveillance. It's like you had that little conversation. Even if I slip up a little, it's only confirmed every argument that we've ever had. If I slip up, just look, if we get to arguing, they're going to say, you still the same person. That psychological weight is heavy. And what happens next is dangerous. It's dangerous because you begin performing perfection, not excellence, but perfection. There's a difference. Professional excellence says that, you're committed to growth. You'll learn from your mistake and you'll show up prepared. Now, perfection, it's like, I can't afford to be human. So you start to hide your fatigue. You start to suppress your stress. You smile when you're actually drowning and pretending that everything is under control when you're actually masking a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And masking is exhausting because it splits you in two. It's the version of people that people see, and then there's the version of you that you barely holding it on together, right? You barely holding it in the road. And if I'm being real with you guys, this is where I've been lately. I've been bogged down. Work expectations have been heavy, trying to meet deadlines, responsibilities, deliverables, all that stuff that comes with having a regular job. And, even at home, life has been lifing. Problems that don't pause just because you have goals, familial disagreements that require emotional bandwidth. Like, I haven't spoken to some of my closest family members in years, and that's been taking a toll on me because I want to reach out, but they still think that I'm the old Antoine and like everything is a game. And what I'm doing now is like trying to cover it up. And I'm like, I'm just doing what I think is the right thing to do. In those moments where my focus felt fractured, right? That's part of why you haven't seen any new episodes. And I could have forced one out, right? I could have made one, but I could have, recorded something just to say that I'm consistent. But here's the truth. Life happens to everyone. And even the person rebuilding, even the person teaching growth, it happens to everyone. Even the person who writes books, right? Even the person that does a podcast. The weight of trying to be steady in public while navigating storms in private is real. And sometimes the fear creeps in. You start to believe like if I slow down, people think that I fell off, or if I miss a beat, does that confirm all of this doubt that I'm feeling? That's performative perfection whispering to you. But here's what I'm learning in real time, guys. You cannot heal and hustle at the same unsustainable pace. You can't rebuild your reputation if you are internally collapsing. You cannot preach discipline while privately running on fumes. And here's the shift that matters the most. Being excellent is sustainable. Being flawless, now that's impossible. So when you feel like you're watched, your instinct is automatically to over control everything. Your tone, your body language, your output, the response time. But hyper control creates hyper anxiety and high blood pressure, which I've been dealing with of late. Hey, look, apple cider vinegar gummies, apple cider shots, fish oil. I'm doing all of those natural treatments right now in order to better my body, because I was having a little bit of anxiety. And it clearly started draining me. It started draining my clarity, what my vision was for this podcast, what the vision was for this mission. Okay. So if you live in constant fear that one mistake will confirm everyone's worst assumptions, I'm going to tell you today, you will never feel safe enough to grow. You will never feel safe enough to grow. If you are going off everyone's those expectations, you will never feel safe enough to grow. You only feel pressure to perform. And performance without authenticity will lead to burnout. So here's the truth I'm sitting in right now, right? Life happening doesn't disqualify you. Slowing down doesn't mean you quit. Taking a breather doesn't mean you're weak. It means you are human. All right. The goal isn't to be untouchable. The goal is to be resilient. And resilient doesn't mean you never wobble, that you never get tired. It just means you keep pushing for you. Not for applause, not to the silent critics that are out there, because you know they're out there, not the haters, not to maintain an image, but because your peace is worth protecting. The people who truly understand growth don't expect perfection from you. If they truly understand growth, they don't expect perfection from you. They expect honesty, consistency, progress, and honesty. All of that is sustainable. All of that is easy. So if you've been feeling like you're carrying both your past and your present at the same damn time, this is the show for you. If you've been trying to keep it all together while everything pulls at you, hear this. You are allowed to be rebuilding and overwhelmed. Just don't let the pressure to appear perfect stop you from being real. And keep pushing. You got to keep pushing for you. Nobody else, but for you. Now, you got to learn how to build sustainable reentry boundaries, right? That's something that I've been focusing on the last few weeks since the last podcast episode, because we have to remain practical. Inspiration without structure is just emotional hype, and hype will not carry you through year one of rebuilding or year two. Boundaries will keep you focused. So when you're rebuilding when you're rebuilding your reputation from zero, the instinct is to be available at all times, right? You answer every call, you respond to every text immediately. Someone says, hey, I need you to be there. You are there. I've done it. I've lived that life. And I have to set those boundaries because I was accepting every opportunity, every volunteer, extra task. I was there because you don't want to be seen as unreliable. But here's the truth. Availability is not the same as reliability. Think about that. Availability is not the same as reliability. And over availability is often insecurity dressed up as dedication. If you're in your first year of rebuilding right now, whether that's post-incarceration, post-addiction, post-financial collapse, because this show is much more than about just rebuilding your life after incarceration. Because incarceration, as we know, can be you just locked up. Whether it's physically, emotionally, financially, publicly, that first year is very fragile, right? It requires protection. So let's define some boundaries clearly. First, let's set limits on overtime and extra commitments. I'm not saying don't work hard. Please, by all means, work hard. Be excellent. Be dependable. But ask yourself this before you say yes. Is this aligned with growth, or is this driven by fear of being coined unreliable? If the only reason you're taking on another responsibility is because you're afraid of disappointing somebody, you need to stop. Fear-based yeses lead to resentment. Resentment then ends up to burnout. And burnout leads to collapse. You cannot sustain a comeback if you are constantly operating beyond capacity. You got to establish a recovery routine. That's the second step. You got to set up a recovery routine. And I mean something intentional. Not scrolling, not zoning out, not numbing out, but recovery. Maybe that's the gym. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's faith practice. Maybe it's a weekly check-in with someone who holds you accountable. Maybe it's just blocking one evening a week that is untouchable just for you. Recovery is maintenance. If you don't maintain your mental health, your stress will make decisions for you. And stress decisions are rarely wise decisions. We know that. The irony of rebuilding is this. You're trying to prove you're stable. That's what you're trying to prove. You're trying to prove you're stable. But if you don't protect your stability, the pressure to prove it will destabilize you. The third thing that I learned during this little sabbatical, if you want to call that, is like you got to learn to say no to high stress opportunities that will jeopardize your long term stability. I'm gonna break that down because this is hard. I'm gonna break it down. Sometimes the opportunity looks real good. More money, maybe more visibility, more responsibility, more recognition. But you got to ask yourself, does this increase pressure beyond what I can healthily carry right now? These are reasons for expansion, guys. These are year one of rebuilding is usually a consolidation season, right? You secure the job, you get your routine, you start your mental health exercises, you start securing your home life. So expansion can wait. But here's something I had to remind myself recently. Just because you carry it doesn't mean you should carry it. Just because you carry it or you can carry it, it doesn't mean you should carry it. Strength without boundary leads to overload. When you're rebuilding, your margin matters. Margin is the space between your responsibility and your breaking point, right? You got to stay within the margins. So if you live at your breaking point long enough, it stops being a point and becomes your normal. That's when the hypertension comes in. That's when the anxiety comes in. And that's dangerous. Boundaries are not selfish. They are strategic. They say, hey, I'm committed to being here long term. I'm committed to staying healthy. I'm committed to protecting what I've rebuilt. And the more mature perspective that we want to take is like, you don't need to accept every opportunity to prove you're serious. You prove you're serious by being consistent. Consistency beats intensity every time. Now, intensity, it burns bright, it looks good, but consistency, that builds credibility. That builds credibility. And that's what we're working on when we're talking about changing the narrative. If you want your second chance to mature into something solid, you must build it with sustainable habits, not survival habits. Survival habits say yes to everything. Yes, I'll do it. Sure, I'm available. Sustainable habits say protect what matters. And the goal is not to impress people in month 3. The goal is still to be stable in year 3. And boundaries will make that possible. That's why it's very important to set those boundaries. Now, we're going to talk about shifting from proving yourself to being yourself. At some point in your rebuilding journey, something very quiet has to shift, right? You got to be subtle, like it just happens. You cannot stay in proving mode forever because proving is exhausting. Proving is loud, it's reactive, it's external. It's fueled by what people think, what people assume, what they remember, what they might say. And in the beginning, proving feels necessary. You want to show your employer that you're reliable. You want to show your family you've changed. You want to be there for every event. Whenever they need you, you want to show up and do it. You want to show your community that your past does not define your future. And that's understandable. I get it. I ran that cycle. But if you never transition out of proving, you'll live the rest of your life chasing validation. And validation is a moving target. There will always be someone unconvinced. There will always be someone skeptical. There will always be someone who only sees the old version of you. So I'm just going to keep it real with you guys, right? That's what the conviction fiction is all about. We're not here to sugarcoat. We're not here to make it seem as like, oh, we're victims. There are some things that you are in control of, but you have to be real with yourself. You have to be real with yourself. And somebody got to tell it to you. Somebody got to say it. If your peace depends on winning someone over, you will never be settled. That's why the shift from proving to being is critical. Proving says, hey, look what I've accomplished. Look at all the stuff I did. Being says, hey, look, this is who I am now. Take it or leave it. This is who I am now. Proving requires that applause, but being requires alignment. When you shift into being, your focus moves inward. You start asking different questions, right? Am I keeping my word? Am I honoring my commitments? Am I living in integrity when nobody's watching? Am I growing privately, not just publicly? But here's the truth, guys. Reputation is built slowly through private discipline long before recognition. You don't rebuild your name in a viral moment. You rebuild it in quiet consistency. Waking up when you said you would, showing up when it's inconvenient, paying bills on time, keeping your emotions regulated, apologizing when you're wrong. These are not grand gestures. They are small, steady deposits. And small deposits compound. We talk about this all the time. Small victories end up to bigger victories. And that's where the freedom in being lies. When you're proving yourself, you feel pressure to explain yourself constantly, right? And you start to over-justify. You start to over-explain. You overshare your growth to make sure that people see, oh, look what I'm doing now. Look what I'm doing now. But it doesn't matter because that's a moving target. That target is always moving. Those same people that you're trying to prove yourself or you're oversharing your growth with, they're going to move it later and like, okay, what else you doing now? And it's going to put more pressure on you. When you're being, you move differently. You don't need to announce every improvement. You don't need to defend every decision you make. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. It's just a misunderstanding. You let your consistency speak, and that takes maturity. It takes confidence that isn't rooted in applause. I've learned this over time myself. Like in the last few weeks, the loud comeback feels powerful, but that quiet transformation, that's the powerful list. One is for the moment, the other is for the long term. And let's be real, some of us are still chasing redemption through performance. We want the big success story, the big contract, the big house, the huge platform, because we believe those things will silence the narrative. That's not going to make people think differently of you. But character silences narratives more effectively than money, fame, or any of that shit ever will. When you're rooted in being, you stop measuring your worth by output. You measure it by integrity. And when your identity stabilizes internally, you become harder to shake externally. All that stuff won't even matter no more. That's where peace lives. Not in proving, in being. And here's that powerful part that a lot of people miss out on. When you stop trying to prove you've changed, that's often when people finally see it. Because it's no longer forced, it's embodied. That's just who you are. You don't need to perform transformation. You need to live it long enough that it becomes normal. The second chances slumps that often happens is because we're trying to sprint through the being mode. But the real breakthrough happens when you settle into the being mode. Just steady work, man. Stay grounded, stay consistent, unapologetically aligned. And from that place, you don't got to worry about burnout because it'll lose its grip. You're no longer chasing approval. You're living in your purpose. And that's the long game, man. The long game of reputation recovery, of changing the narrative. That's one of the biggest reasons people hit the second chance slump, because of urgency. That frantic belief that you have to fix everything right now. You got to clear your name. You got to build your credit fast. You got to repair a marriage fast. You got to launch a business, get promoted fast. Everything becomes fast. You got to become the success story like immediately. That urgency feels productive, but it's usually rooted in anxiety. It's the fear that if that transformation doesn't happen quickly enough, then it won't count. So you run fast, you overextend, you overcommit, you over-identify with outcomes. And when results don't match that timeline in your head, that's when the discouragement creeps in. That's when people relapse into old behaviors. Not because they aren't capable of change, not because they don't want to change, but because they're attached their worth to speed. Reputation recovery is not microwavable. Like you can't just put in there 10 seconds, boom, success. It's agricultural. And I'm proving the point because you're going to plant your seed, you're going to water it, you're going to protect it, you're going to wait. You're going to plant it, water it, protect it, and wait. And for many of us, that's the most uncomfortable part is when you're waiting, when you feel like you are behind. That's why I encourage a 3-year perspective. Not 3 weeks, not 3 months, 3 years. Give yourself 3 years. Year 1, just focus on stability. Not fame, not expansion, not applause. Just get stable. Just find stability, a steady job, some predictable routines. No chaos, no new fires, no fighting with your baby mama, baby daddy, no dramatic mood swing, just stability. Year 1 is about proving to yourself that you can maintain peace. Now, year 2, this is when you're going to start strengthening yourself. You're going to get some new skills, start deepening some relationships, start figuring out how to emotionally regulate. I mean, you've been locked up or you've been in whatever financial incarceration or whatever was holding you back, whatever you're recovering from, you need to find emotional regulation with that. You're going to start saving money, maybe investing it more into your health and building that credibility quietly, because this is where the confidence begins to stabilize internally. Once you do that, you're ready for year 3. Year 3 is expansion. You're going to build from the strength, like not out of desperation. You're just adding opportunities from margin, not survival. You're choosing growth strategically instead of reactively. When you think in 3-year blocks, something powerful happens. The first thing is that frantic edge softens. You stop making decisions from panic. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop feeling like every opportunity is now or never, because it's not now or never. It's not now or never. And here's something that rarely gets celebrated enough, guys. Some of the most important milestones in rebuilding have nothing to do with money or visibility. 6 months without drama, a year without legal trouble, improved credit, healthy co-parenting, showing up consistently for your children, better sleep, lower anxiety. We can go on, stronger emotional control. Those are victories. But they don't get social media posts. They don't trend. They don't come with applause. They come with peace. And peace is the real flex. You know you're healing when you stop needing external confirmation that you're growing. You just feel steadier, more regulated, more patient, less reactive, less desperate. And let's be honest, some of us sabotage long-term progress because we're addicted to dramatic turnaround stories. We want the highlight reel. But highlight reels don't show the daily discipline. If you want your second chance to mature into something unshakable, you have to commit to a pace that ensures you are still standing when the opportunity season arrives. Because here's the quiet truth. Many people don't fall, or many people don't fail or fall their second chance. They exhausted. They just get tired. They burn themselves out trying to prove something in year 1 or in the first 4 months that only time can confirm. The goal isn't to impress people quickly. The goal is to be stable consistently. When someone looks at you 3 years from now and says, he's steady, he's pretty solid. Yeah, he's a reliable, she's reliable. That is reputation recovery. That is changing the narrative. Not hype, not momentum, not a viral moment, just steadiness. And steadiness requires boundaries, patience, internal identity, long game thinking. If you commit to the long game, burnout, I guarantee you, will lose its power because you're no longer sprinting to prove you deserve space. You're building a life that naturally occupies space. That's what you're doing. All right, so that's our show for today, man. So if you're in a slump right now, if you're tired, if rebuilding feels heavier than you expected, just pause, my guy. Just pause, my girl. Not quit. Pause. Recalibrate your pace. Ask yourself, ask yourself, am I building something sustainable or am I trying to erase my past at full speed? You do not owe the world exhaustion. You owe yourself stability. Protect your energy, guys. Set your boundaries. Shift from proving to being and play the long game because the goal isn't just to come back, it's to stay free, stay grounded, stay consistent, and stay standing. And when your second chance matures, not in months, but in years, you won't just have rebuilt your reputation, you have rebuilt yourself. You changed the narrative. And that's the real win. This is the Conviction Fiction Podcast. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.